Hello, and thank you for joining us for this certification talk on choosing a role-based certification path. Gregor, why don't you give a little introduction?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Gregor Suttie. I am a Microsoft Azure MVP. I'm also an Azure architect at a company called Intercept. They're based in the Netherlands. During my career, I've served many roles, over 24 years of IT experience, mostly as a developer. I also have a background in DevOps, SRE, and in my last role, I was a development team manager. I'm certified in multiple Azure roles, including the Azure Solution Architecture Expert, Administrator Associate, DevOps Engineer Expert, and also the Security Engineer Associate. I'm also a Microsoft Certified Trainer, and I help run the Glasgow Azure User Group. And also blog on most things on Azure at gregorsuttie.com. So that's where you can find me. And I'm also on Twitter at Gregor_Suttie.
Great, thanks, Gregor. And my name is Dwayne Natwick. I am also a Microsoft MVP. I'm also a Microsoft Certified Trainer as well as a regional lead for the MCT program. I am a cloud training architect lead at Opsagility and Skill Me Up, and have been in the IT industry for 30 plus years. Have multiple role-based certifications. My background is more in the infrastructure side of things, but so I have the architect expert as well as security. I have security, Azure security engineer, as well as Microsoft 365 security engineer, security administrator. And you can also find me on the social media links on the slide as well. I'm active in the social media world as well. So today we're going to, one of the things that I think Gregor gets asked a lot, as well as I do, especially being a trainer when I'm doing courses, is how do I pick a certification path? So we're going to talk about the certification paths today, how to choose a path, how to build then a plan for getting your first certifications and moving on from there. And then Gregor and I are going to also share some resources that are available out there that are generally public and free resources out on the internet, and as well as then we're going to go a little bit deeper and show some of the great tools that Microsoft has with their Microsoft Learn platform to help you begin your preparation to a certification. So I'm going to start by talking through some of these certification paths and what we have. And Microsoft provides a lot of the tools and capabilities around them, but typically what you have in terms of your certification paths is you have some different paths that you can take. And it's going to really be defined by what role you're in now or what role you're wanting to get to. And so, those are around, developer, administrator, whether you're more into the architecture, and then there's the data and data science and AI as well, and then also security engineer, which is becoming more and more of a popular role within the Azure role-based infrastructure, as well as with other certification paths as well, with other cloud providers. Getting your specializations and associate certifications within security has become a really hot topic. So, generally, that's the way you want to start, is determine, from a standpoint of my career and my career goals, which direction do I want to take and where do I want to go from there? And once you do that, then we can start drilling down to what exams and what certifications go from there. And that's where we go here, is the different path breakdowns. And Microsoft has broken these down in multiple ways. And and you can find this breakdown in out on the internet as well, where it takes you each direction in terms of whether you're Azure specific, whether you're Microsoft 365 specific, Dynamics 365, and then Power Platform. And they're really expanding a lot of the Power Platform certifications as we go along. Some of the Microsoft, the legacy Dynamics certifications are moving to more of a Power Platform focus, as well as some of the data analysts and some of the things around Power BI and things are moving that way as well. And if we look and focus a little bit around the Azure certifications right now, you can look and determine, again, based, if you think about the previous slide and whether you're a developer or an administrator or an architect, you can see here that there are different paths within the Azure that kind of, we look at Azure and a macro focus, but you can get down to a micro focus of whether you're looking at more of the data side of things with, databases and utilizing data modeling, Databricks, and those services, or we're looking at more of an infrastructure or a developer side of things, and you can tie all that in. And then the security pieces, kind of are all encompassing around how you're securing all of those services as well. And then same thing with Microsoft 365. You can determine whether you're looking at a desktop side of things, whether you're in more of an exchange online environment, security again. If you're a Microsoft 365 administrator and you want to go down that path, or your team specific, depending on what you want to do there, you can do that. And Dynamics gets a little bit more granular in terms of job function. Dynamics is more job function based in terms of whether you're in a procurement or sales type environment, finance and business supply chain and things, that goes a little bit deeper from that standpoint. Anything you want to add there, Gregor?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that you have to kind of find your path. It's probably the best way to start off is choose a path to begin with, and try and align it to either your current job or your career goals. So I kind of started off. Learning Azure and didn't really have a path. So it's definitely a recommended route is to definitely choose a path. Figure out what you want to learn. Is it related to your job, or is it related to something you want to learn? And start off with the fundamentals. So each of these career path breakdowns has a fundamentals exam. So I would recommend you start with the fundamentals exam. Just as if maybe you've not done an exam for a while, it's good to start off with something slightly kind of easier. And then after that, usually you move into the associate roles, and then you can move on to the kind of expert roles. It's good that they've got these kind of job role functions. They've kind of tried to break the exams down a little bit into more job roles and what people might be doing. Like you can see there's like Azure data engineer and data scientist. So these are kind of fairly new. But yeah, they've broken them down nicely, and there's more to come. So keep an eye out for new exams coming out all the time.
Yeah, and why don't you talk more about then how you've gone about your path to choosing the roles and how your path to development is, and then I'll share a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I was starting out from scratch, I would recommend starting out with for me, I'm an Azure person, so I would start off with the Azure Fundamentals exam. It gives you a kind of focus for study. It also gives you a bit of background about all of Azure, and kind of the high level things you need to know. And then from there, I've got a development background, so I would probably look at the developer exams. So that's kind of what I did back in the day when I took these exams. I looked at the developer exams, which was AZ 200 and 201 at the time. It's now up to 204, just because the exams have kind of progressed and gotten better. So that's kind of the key. Start off with the fundamentals, and then look at the path that you want to go down. So if I'm a developer, I go down the developer path. If I'm a data person, I would go down the data path. And that's the kind of formula for doing it. So even if you're doing like Microsoft 365, start off with the fundamentals, and then if you're a developer, look at the developer associate, or if you're a Teams administrator, maybe kind of go down that road. But yeah, do a little bit of homework, look at the paths that suit you, and figure out the path that you want to go down, and go from there, really.
Yeah, I think, and like you said, I kind of took it the same route. I took the Azure fundamentals, but I was more of like I said, infrastructure guy. So I went the path of the AZ 100 and AZ 101, which is now the AZ 104. They've combined those as well, just like you went through with the developer associate. And then the way that logically you can progress through your certifications is the AZ 303 is very similar to the AZ 104. And I've told a lot of students that once they go through and pass that 104, that really databases and containers are probably the addition to 303 that aren't focused as much in the 104, and you can move right into the 303 right off of that. And I did all four, at the time it was 4 exams, and did all 4 of those exams within a 2-month time frame to get my associate and my expert at this, all really in tight focus. And I've talked to other students and have talked them through doing the same exact thing, and have done it, in very short time frame, because they are very similar from that standpoint. But I agree with you from what you're saying about the fundamentals, starting with the fundamentals. And there's fundamentals now for just about every path. There's Azure fundamentals. There's the Microsoft 365 fundamentals. There's a Dynamics fundamentals. There's Power Platform fundamentals. And then then even to add to that, there's a artificial intelligence fundamentals and a data fundamentals. So there are 6 fundamentals paths, with more to come. From my understanding, that they're adding more fundamentals exams. So the more of those that you build up, the more broad focus and broad idea you get around what the associate and expert paths are going to look like. And they're very helpful then to choose your path. And even so, if you're focused, say, on an Azure developer path, taking fundamentals exams around data and AI and Azure as a whole are always good to have that broad wing and that broad umbrella of understanding around other services that you may not touch on a day-to-day basis, but still could be a way for you to just to communicate with others in different roles within your organization.
And I've done just exactly that. So I've recently, I think on Friday, I sat the AI fundamentals exam, and that was just for what you're saying. We have customers asking us about AI, and if I want to kind of be able to speak to them and have a decent conversation at their level, I can at least kind of look at some Microsoft Learn courses, some study material, and kind of do the fundamentals exam. And from that, you can see, is this something I want to pursue, and maybe move on to the associate and the expert level exams, or is it just something I want to dip in and know a little bit about? So yeah, that's very good. It's a very good idea to kind of do the different fundamentals exams as well. I'll probably look at like Power Platform fundamentals. It's not something that I do day to day, but it's something that someone might ask me at some point. So if I've done the fundamentals exam, at least I know what I'm talking about to a certain level. So yeah, it's a good idea to do them all. I think there's 6 at the minute, with a lot more coming.
Yep. Yeah, and so now that we've talked about how to choose in the path, once somebody's chosen the path, Gregor, what are your thoughts on how to plan and prepare then for those certifications?
Yeah, so
what are your best practices?
Yeah, so for example, I was basically going to look at the AI fundamentals last week. So first thing I would do is I would go to Microsoft Learn, I would look at the certification tab, and I would search for AI and see what comes up first of all, and then look for the fundamentals exam. So from that page, I'm looking at what's involved, what are the skills that are going to be measured. From there, I would basically take some notes. I'd usually create a OneNote for each exam. I put the link to the official page. And what I've done in the past is I've actually had a wee quick look at what's involved. How much do I know off the top of my head? How much am I going to need to learn? So how long do I think I could take to pass this exam? So for the AI fundamentals, I basically set myself 2 hours a night for 1 week. So I booked the exam for Friday, starting on Monday, and basically put some time aside. I looked at the study guides, even just Googling for like AZ or AI 900 study guides. Go off and look at them, do some hands-on lab training, look at Microsoft Learn, and just get a good feel for the exam. And if you feel you're not ready, you can always cancel it and book it another time. But I thought a week would be fine. And I gave myself a week because I've done some previous exams. So if you're new to doing exams, I would recommend giving yourself a little bit longer than that. So I had a fair idea of what I was getting myself into. But if you're doing an exam for the first time, I would maybe give yourself a couple of months just to get comfortable with what's involved in the exam. How do you book the exam? We all need to do the exams online at the moment, so you need to look into the whole proctored part and just have a plan and make sure you've got a study guide. Set aside some time to focus. So I basically stopped watching Netflix for a couple of hours a night or watching television, and basically take notes on my study material, put it into OneNote, so that just before the exam I've got something to quickly look at the key topics in that OneNote, rather than having to go through all the kind of exam material again. And also use practice tests to study. I always try and look for some practice tests. I know there's one or two companies out there that do practice tests, scale me up as well, and do practice tests just before your exam. So that's kind of my plan for creating my own plan for doing a new set of exams.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something really good there. That I think, around scheduling the exam to give you kind of that
Focus.
point of focus. Exactly. Schedule your exam. You can always reschedule it, especially right now during the pandemic. They give you a 24-hour window to reschedule it. As long as you're not under 24 hours before the exam, you have the ability to reschedule it to a later date. But putting that exam on your calendar and then start to set time aside really helps you out. And I like what you were saying around, if you haven't taken an exam before, that's another reason why a fundamentals exam will be helpful to you, because the fundamentals exams are generally, they're still very similar to a associate or expert exam. You might not get the case study type questions in those, but you at least get a feel for how the questions are asked, which is extremely important and really something that that is kind of especially even if you've taken like a AWS exam or a Google exam or Cisco exam, every vendor is different in how they ask questions. So taking a test and knowing how those questions are asked is helps to alleviate some of that stress. And a fundamentals exam can help that, because there's a much lower stress level in a lot of cases to taking a fundamentals exam versus an associate or an expert exam. So I think those are key. And then as well as labs, doing, even with fundamentals, it's nice, it's still helpful to do some lab work, and we'll share some resources of where you can get some labs within that are available on GitHub, as well as my company Skill Me Up actually does provide labs in a lab environment that you can subscribe to and have labs for all of those study materials if you don't have access to say an Azure or Microsoft 365 subscription to be able to play in. So those are some different options there as well.
Yeah, it's a key point you make. So I'm a visual person. If I backtrack a little bit, I started trying to learn Azure without doing any hands-on learning. So back in the day when I very first started to learn Azure, I really struggled with the first two exams that I sat, because I had no time in the cockpit, as they say. I was reading blog posts, and I was reading the Microsoft docs, and I thought, hey, I understand this, I'm getting this. I didn't do any practice tests, and I sat in exams, and I just failed the two of them. But I soon realised that I'm a visual person, and I need to do hands-on learning. So I learn more from doing rather than reading. So the hands-on labs that you guys do and you can get online are really, really good these days. There's a good number of hands-on learning. And the thing about hands-on learning is you can try stuff and break it and just try again. You're not paying for it. It's always free. So you can spin stuff up, try it out, play around with it, break it, do whatever you want, and then you can throw it away at the end. Yeah, it's important. It's important to remember how to do exams if you haven't done exams for a while as well. So I'm a very visual person. So hands-on labs are definitely my favourite.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something too. Don't get frustrated if you fail. You might these exams aren't made to be easy. So if you don't pass your first time, just take it as a learning experience because
Yeah.
hey, I haven't taken this exam before. Take what you learn from taking that exam and do better. And like you said, maybe you need to do more hands-on. Maybe you need to
Hmm.
to focus on a specific area of the objectives a little bit more, and it gives you that learning experience. And when you do complete an exam, it does tell you, it gives you a bar graph of where you score, what areas of the objective criteria you scored and where you were in terms of the passing scale of where you are, where you were in that area, so you can determine, okay, I need to focus a little bit more on monitoring and management for this particular exam, for instance. And you can go back and you can focus on that. You can refresh on the areas that you may have scored strongly in, and then be ready to go. So don't think of it as a failure. Think of it as a learning experience, and that I know I need to learn more before I can get to that level. And that's just par for the course. I know I've failed my fair share of exams first time around, and I'm sure Gregor can attest for
Yep.
probably the same thing. But
Mhm.
and it isn't a failure. We all may or may not pass, but we have eventually we've stuck with it and we've passed it eventually. That's
Yeah.
that's really where it all comes down to.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps to have a plan. So if you have a plan and you set time aside and you stick to that plan, that definitely helps. So I failed 3 exams in total, and I wasn't too bothered about failing them because I realised that, like, before I started studying for the particular exam, I knew absolutely nothing about it, and I got like 680 out of 1,000. So I know for a fact that I've learned stuff. So that just spurs
Mm-hmm.
me on. It spurred me on even more to go and learn and take it again. Now, if you do fail an exam, I always recommend you try and take it again as soon as you can, just so it's fresh in your mind. Don't be put off by failing an exam at all. I think everyone who's sat once probably failed an exam at some point. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've taken many of the beta exams
Hmm.
just cold.
Yeah.
There's no learning materials or anything out there. I'll just sit for it,
Yeah.
and because it's at a high discount as a certified trainer, that I can, I sit for it, see how I do, and I've been hit or miss on them a lot of times because yeah, sometimes there are areas that I know very little about anyway,
Yeah.
but they're fun. You get a good learning experience out of it. The one that I was a little disappointed that I missed, like you said, I was probably in the mid 600s on, was the SAP on Azure one, but you know what, it wasn't anything that, no
Mm.
skin to worry about there. I've got to prepare. I haven't gotten a chance to prepare for it again, but definitely then there've been a couple of them where I've come close on, and then once it was out of beta and released, I passed. I had that with the 500, the AZ 500, the security
Yeah.
exam. I took the beta. I didn't pass the beta, but a week after it came out of beta, I took it and passed it. So we all have those experiences, and like you said, don't take it. You can't take it personal. You can't uh, don't go kicking dirt and getting all in the in a bad place about it. Everybody out there has probably failed an exam at one point or time for certifications, because like I said, they're not made to be easy, and that's why a lot of people like Gregor, myself, many others out there have provided a lot of resources to help others prepare for those exams and provide some of those lessons learned. And I think that'll tee you up, Gregor, for talking a little bit about some of those resources.
Yeah. I don't know if I can share my screen. Am I able to share my
Yeah, let
screen?
me. Yep. Let me stop sharing and go ahead.
Okay. Let's do this. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I see the empty search browser
Okay.
area.
So so when we're talking about learning and doing exams, what I tend to do is I use Microsoft Edge. Now, the reason why I use Microsoft Edge is I can use this thing called collections. So I know you didn't know about this, Dwayne, but collections is really good for storing a collection of data. So let me just go into like Azure exams, for example. So if I'm doing a talk on GitHub Actions, what I do is I go and do my research on what I want to talk about, and I store all my useful information in GitHub Actions. So if I'm talking about doing like an Azure exam, I put all my useful links for people for doing like things like this talk. So I've got all my links for doing talks on Azure certification and learning resources. So let me just bring up. So for example, I've got the Microsoft certification docs. So first protocol when I'm studying for a new exam, I'll click on this link. And I know you're going to demo Microsoft Learn later, so I won't steal your thunder, but this is a kind of starting page for me for most things under certifications. So this is Microsoft Learn. You can look at all the different certifications. You can get all the different paths that we showed earlier on. So that's kind of my first port of call is this website. So that's just docs.microsoft.com/whatever, and then learn/certifications. Really, really good website. This is the place I go. It helps you to prepare for your certification. Gives you lots of learning resources, and tells you information about why you want to become certified. So I kind of always show that as the first link. And then you can go into the second link, which is kind of browsing by the exams. So if I'm going to do, but one of the exams I was going to do here was the DP 900 fundamentals. So this is the actual me searching for this exam, and this is the official documentation page for that actual exam. So it basically gives you a bit of background information. It gives you some details how to schedule it, and it also gives you the skills being measured. So if I show you this real quick, this is the kind of thing you get per exam. They give you a PDF of the skills being measured. So you can see that the exams usually split into 4 or 5 different sections. So this section here is called Describe Core Data Concepts. So out of the 1,000 marks, 15 to 20% of the exam is based on this content here. And as you can see, the next bit's the same, 25 to 30%, so on and so on. So the good thing is when I first did these exams, I would take this link and I would go and look up the Microsoft docs for Describe Batch Data. And then I would create a blog post and I would put a Microsoft link in here so that when people are coming along to sit this exam kind of behind me, after me, they could click on the link and go and learn about Describe Batch Data for the DP 900 exam. So the good news is lots of people have kind of done this and written lots of really useful study guides. And I'll show you a link in a wee bit about some of the study guides, but that's an example of the actual official exam page. So you can see Microsoft Learn courses. So they give you 2 ways to prepare. There's some online free exams and there's also some instructor paid exam training. And you click on here if you want to go and schedule it, and you can see the price of it. So every exam's the fundamentals exams are slightly cheaper than the associate and expert level exams. So that's just a quick example of an official page for an official exam. What else have we got? So this is another nice resource. There's a guy called Chris Peachman has wrote a Azure certification exam self-assessment tool. So you can basically go in and you choose your exam down here and you get an Excel spreadsheet with what I just showed you, the broken down areas, and you can fill in your confidence level of each section as you're going. And that's a good indication of how confident you are in each section that you're going to get asked about. And then once you're ready to go, you can basically just go ahead and book your exam. That's kind of what a lot of people do. That's quite a nice resource there.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I usually, with any of my students, I point them to this just to help them and guide them to that prep work so that you can just kind of, it's, preparing for an exam is really, you're doing a self search, right? And you're determining which one of these objectives I feel the most confident about. And that's what this spreadsheet really does for you. And it then calculates everything, up through there based on the percentages you enter in. So you can then continue to view and look at where you're at. And as you continue down those objective areas, and it gets very granular to each piece of that objective area from that sheet, and even probably a little deeper in some cases than the objective sheet that's available on the certification page, so that you can really get an idea of, okay, here's what I'll just use security for example. Here's what I know about, here's my confidence level around Azure Security Center, or around Azure Active Directory, or role-based access control. And you can really determine where, get an idea just from your own confidence feelings of how I feel about it, as I'm preparing for the exam, and then you can determine at the beginning of your path and of your preparations of where I feel I'm already strong. Okay, I already work in this specific area, so I feel good about this, but I don't feel good about this, and you can then determine your focus areas as you go about your path to studying.
Yeah, and I've actually passed exams, and what happens now is they give you this breakdown. They give you the breakdown of the areas the percentages you scored. So if I pass an exam and one of the areas is quite low, I can take that and come back here and look at like what areas do I need to go and just, even though I passed the exam, I'd quite like to learn a little bit more about. So that's quite good. They used to only do it when you failed the exam, but now when you pass the exam, you still get the report to say this is what you scored in all the areas, which is pretty good. Yeah, that's quite good. So I like that. So yeah, this is free, and highly recommend downloading that and choosing the right exam and going through it all. Definitely, it's good to know you're confident enough to go ahead and do it. It's very handy. One of the other training assets I found was a Microsoft web page where, let me just load this one. So it's a training gallery. So there's lots of different exams in here. And if you filter this web page by exam, I guess we can send on these links once we're finished, Dwayne. But if you do like AZ 900, for example, you can find featured training for exams. If I open this link in a new web browser, this is training for the exam, which is really good. There's lots of things to break down the fundamentals, understanding cloud concepts. So each section of the exam is broken into a little course, which is really cool. And then the last link you get is the actual link to the official page for the exam. So that's really cool. So if I was doing like AZ, let's say 400, this is the DevOps exam. Again, I can go in here and just click on it, and I'll get resources for the exam, which is pretty cool. Even if you're not doing exams, this is quite cool. So it'll give you lots of information about building applications with DevOps, evolving DevOps practices, capturing feedback. There's really quite a lot of useful resources in here. I come back here quite a lot, to be honest. So that's really good. I really do like that website. So that's just, we can send on the link afterwards, but useful information. Yeah. One other, I'll probably show you another couple. There's a Microsoft Learning GitHub page. So it's just github.com/Microsoft Learning. And in here are lots of courses and hands-on labs type thing. So let's say let's just take the top one, 220 IoT developer. So there's instructions on setting up a lab. So they'll take you to a whole lab, which is really cool. They give you web pages to explain about what you're going to do. They give you notes. And you can basically just go in here and do the whole course, which is really good. There's a lot of really good stuff in this website. There's lots of courses for lots of exams. So yeah, that was the one I was doing on Friday, AI 900. So it gives you kind of example Jupyter notebooks, things like that you can spin up and play around with, which is cool. You might not be able to know what you're doing, but you can spin these up because these are example ones. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. That's pretty useful. I also created an Azure resource on GitHub, and if I go here, what I did was I created some DevOps best practices. I had an exams folder, so I basically put study guides in here. These are all the study guides that I've written or found. So if I go into something like AZ 104, and then I go into study guides, there's a list of some really good study guides that people have written. So that's people who have done what we did earlier. You go in and you see the skills being measured page, and you look up all the links, and someone's kindly put in links to all these learning resources. So there's lots of good stuff in here. So I've done that for quite a number of exams, and I'll just keep updating that as I go. So that's on GitHub, and people can add to that at any point. It's pretty good. Some of these are a little bit out of date, but like the AZ 103 is now the 104, but when I was doing that, the 103 was still about. So that's pretty good for the exams. I've also got some useful links. So if you're learning Azure, there's lots of general useful links, some study guides, things like deployment best practices, There's the Azure reference architecture, which is pretty good. If I show you that, that's just as it says on the tin. It's reference architecture that gives you an example of how to do things. So if you're doing, I don't know, AI plus machine learning, and you want to do Azure Stack Hub, there's example Azure architecture diagrams and kind of gives you an example of how people would use it and links for learning more. That's also pretty good. Yeah, Azure architecture learning center is very good. Yeah, so that's pretty much me, I think, Dwayne, for useful resources. Don't want to show Microsoft Learn too much because I know you're going to demo that.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Microsoft Learn here. Let me go back to sharing real quick here, and I wanted to show a couple things too before we went off of that as well.
I still think Microsoft Learn is the number one resource for learning for the exam,
Yeah,
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
It is super helpful from that standpoint, and we'll. So before that, I wanted to show a couple things as well about resources, and like we were talking about, here's just a quick example of a score report, and you can see, based on and Gregor will know this one because this is the AI 900, so this is my score report. I don't know if your bars were higher or not, but
no, yours are higher than mine. That's for
sure. We both passed. But you can see here, based on the score on where you were at, it shows you, each of these bars is like 20%. So I was high on, I was above 80% on 3 of the areas. 2 of the areas I was a little bit low, and based on the percentage of weightedness of the weight of those particular, the number of questions that you have, that you can find out, get a pretty quick idea where you might have may need to gain more information. Like Gregor said, even if you pass the exam, if you're working in this area of AI services or even data services, you might want to go back and look at some of these fundamental machine learning principles where I might have been a little bit lower, and find out where I might have fallen short in that area a little bit. So that's helpful as well. I wanted to show real quick too, just, we talked about some of the labs, so I wanted to show really Skill Me Up a little bit. And there's some, cool things around Skill Me Up, and we offer a trial subscription, and you can go in and you can do some labs. We have a couple. You go in and look at some of these challenge labs. These challenge labs actually give you a claim badge once you're done with them. These are a little bit more advanced after you've done some studying and learning to do a challenge lab. There's other step-by-step labs as well that you can also do. And there are hundreds of labs on the Skill Me Up platform, as well as a lot of learning paths around all of the certifications. If I pull up, say, Azure Fundamental or Azure Administrator, and go from there, we have our learning path here for Azure Administrator, and within there we have labs around the particular skill areas. So this is a helpful resource. There's a lot of other training resources out there that if you have the budget to subscribe to, I highly recommend subscribing to a learning partner site and utilizing that. But the thing around Microsoft Learn, without necessarily subscribing to anything, you can get on Microsoft Learn and start to utilize this tool for free. That's one of the beautiful things around Microsoft Learn. And one of the and something else that they've started doing is Microsoft has started putting some lab sandboxes within some of their learning paths as well. And you can see here, when you have your Learn platform, and you've set it up with your certification email address, it comes back and it finds your path. So it can see, what paths I was in recently. It shows you popular learning paths and modules. I have a few that I've started here. You can go back, you can go to your profile and look at, where you're at, what your recent bookmarks are, your achievements, and you get badges within Microsoft Learn as you complete certain learning paths. And you can see here, like just in my path, I utilize this pretty heavily for for preparing for my Microsoft Teams certification, for taking that administrator. And like Gregor said, when you go in to learn and you can look up by the different certifications, and if, say, I'm looking at my fundamentals, I can go directly to the learning path right in here and go through everything that needs to be known for the Azure certificate, fundamental certification exam. And these are really helpful, especially for the fundamentals exams. I can definitely attest that, you could look at this and go through this path and feel pretty confident that you could sit for one of the fundamentals exams. For some of the associate and the expert level exams, I would say you probably want to go a step further. But the nice thing about Microsoft Learn is, going back to where we started here in choosing your path, there's no cost. The only investment is your time to go in and go down this road. If you're thinking about changing roles into, from an infrastructure person to a developer, or you're a server person and you want to know more about Azure, you can go in here and determine which direction you want to take by taking some of these modules and say, hey, this is, AI is interesting to me, or databases are interesting to me. Let me see how, let me learn some things around the Azure environment or the Microsoft 365 environment in here. And maybe you then can find a new passion and a new direction that you want to take within your professional development. And this really gives you that way. Like I said, the only investment is your time. You spend some time on your weekends, or like Gregor said, take an hour away from your Netflix time and go from there, and study, spend some time after you've watched that week's premiere of The Mandalorian or something like that, right?
So I basically stopped playing my Xbox.
Or stop playing Xbox. Yes, exactly. Yeah, take away from your time on Xbox or PlayStation or whatever it is. So it's really helpful from that standpoint. And like you said, you can look based on roles and specific roles. Like I said, specific certifications. Another thing to point out is Learn TV is something that they've really put some time into, and some really good content in here. They even have like stuff around Microsoft Ignite in here, like for new announcements and things. So, lots of different expert talks and webinars and things that have been that Microsoft does that through Learn TV. So so it's not just content from a reading and lab type content. There's a lot of rich content in here. There's you can find Q&A. You can get to Microsoft Docs right from here as well. So Microsoft has done an incredible job with just what they provide within the Microsoft Learn platform, and have made it fun too. There, a lot of times, sometimes if you subscribe to Microsoft Learn and get registered on here and start doing work, you can see here, like they give you, your level, you get leveled up. So it's, if you are taking your time away from Xbox, you can still play some games and increase your XP and things like that, and level up within Microsoft Learn as well. And they do some, at different times of the year, do some challenges with other people on Microsoft Learn that you can subscribe to, that they allow that you can kind of compete against, and they give you a leaderboard, and you can they give away prizes at the end of that challenge for based on what your level was, how many additional XP points you earned. You get a certain amount of entries in a drawing, and it was really cool. I actually won a pair of Surface headphones through one of those challenges back in the spring, which was really cool. Nice. So nice. And if you're a partner with Microsoft, you can work with your partner development manager. Usually will also can sponsor you to run those challenges as well. And based on how many people within your company enroll to those challenges, you get certain number of T-shirts, some vouchers, and things like that as well. So I recommend that if you're listening to this and you are part of a Microsoft partner, if you're a CSP within the Microsoft partner organization, is to reach out and see if you can if your company can rally together your delivery people, your engineers, your architects, and build a challenge around that as well. Because I've done that with a previous partner that I worked for, and it was really fun because you get the people wanting to compete against each other, compete against their coworkers, and everybody learns. That's what it's a win-win because people can get some prizes as well as everybody gets a chance to learn and build, and everybody starts building their Azure and Microsoft 365 knowledge base at that point as well.
Just while we're here, while you've got it on screen, Dwayne, it's also interesting to note there's learning paths and modules. So the nice thing about this is it's bite-sized learning. So you could just jump into a module, do that module, and then leave. You don't need to kind of start a learning path and go through the full thing.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
For example, if you want to go and learn about Service Bus, for example, if you just search for Service Bus, there'll be a module on Service Bus. That means you don't need to spend the whole time doing the course. So it's pretty cool that you can find products. You can search for Azure products within Microsoft Learn and just find out about that one thing. So if you go to Service Bus, for example, there you go. So you can learn just about Service Bus. So you might want to learn in a specific scenario and then watch that module finish that module and then move on. Yeah.
Yep, I already started this one, but I was doing it on my iPad, so I couldn't launch the sandbox. So I need to finish this one up. But you can see, and you can if it takes you right back. If I click continue, here it takes me right into the exercise. Yeah. So it takes it remembers where you were.
Yeah, it's quite nice that it does it inside the browser. So it opens up Azure and you can basically do it from the browser. You don't need to go off and do anything else. It's really cool.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I like the fact you can filter by products on the left, but you can also filter by roles.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's quite nice.
It's your roles or levels. If you're beginner, you can find beginner roles. A lot of times you click on the beginner roles. A lot of that's more the foundational stuff. Some of the sales things, usually if I'm talking to a salesperson that's new to a company, have them go to the beginner. Again, you can have roles even in here. In terms of if you're a student, it'll drill down as well and take you different places you need to go and things like that. So so you can figure out what you need to do and what direction you want to go. So if you're not sure which product, but you have an idea of role and what level you are, you can go down that path. You can drill down to just learning paths. So if you do want to do a learning path rather than specific modules, you can do that. Or like I said, you click on the modules as well and get, just specific modules. So lots of things to do and lots of ways to filter. And as well, you can, if you go to browse certifications, it does it very similar way. It'll, you can filter your certifications in the same manner. And like I said, go to the certifications. I'm not going to click on the MS 100 or 101 because there's actually no learn topics around that one. But like I said, we could go to say managing Microsoft Teams. And my browser's being slow, and you go down to the online free, and there's your Teams collaboration learn module right there.
The one thing to say as well is every time I come back to Microsoft Learn, there's a whole lot of new content, so it's updated very, very frequently. I think a lot of people I know have used it and then not came back. So when you come back, you're quite surprised just how much content this is in there. There's thousands of courses.
Yeah, I've had courses that learning paths that I've completed and I know I've completed and I've come back and there's a new module for it, right? Things like that as well, because it is always. I use AZ500 as an example an awful lot because I do a lot of talks around security and I've taught that class quite a few times, and they've done that. They've done a lot to changed that course, and recently they added like a lot more with Azure Security Center, and they added Azure Sentinel to it. So if you go back to that course after you've done it, 6 months ago, they're going to have things on Azure Security Center and Azure Sentinel in there that probably weren't there before. So you probably show a gap in there. And let me see if I've got a gap in that one. I probably haven't done this one in quite a while. So you can see I'm only at like 13%. So, and you can see if you go to start, you can see all the modules of that learning path. So I got quite a bit on this one because I wasn't too much into Microsoft Learn when I took this exam. So I haven't gone through all that, but you can see you got defense in depth and things like that. You got network security. If we wanted to go back and even look in Azure and say we do want to look at Sentinel, we could probably find a course right on Sentinel in here. And there you go, some introduction to Sentinel. So if you're wanting to learn about Azure's SIM solution, you can go right in and learn about that right off the bat. And one of the nice things about these learning paths as well is when you get into the learning path, it's a lot of text, but it's also there's links and things in here as well as you get into it. There's diagrams and everything, as well as in some cases, and I'm trying to come across one. There are links as well. You have a knowledge check. Some of them do also have links right into the Microsoft Docs as well to get to that. Some of them have videos to watch, so it's not all reading on your own and things like that as well. So you've got a lot of different things that you can do within all of these paths. And if you want to bookmark them for later, you can do that. Add them to a collection within the Learn environment, and then you go back to your profile, and you can very quickly and easily get to those as well.
Yeah, I use the bookmarking and add to collection quite a lot, to be honest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the knowledge checks are good.
Yes. The knowledge checks are nice to help you, get to a point, get an idea of how, some of what some of the questions might be on the exam too, because they're similar. They're usually a little bit higher level and not as demanding as some of the exam questions, but they're still nice. All right. So that gives us an example of all of the services and how you want to choose your path and everything. So so we've gone through and we've talked about how you're going to what those certification paths are, how you go through, are you going to do Azure, are you going to do Microsoft 365, are you going to get granular into security or devices or administration and security? There's a lot of paths you can choose. So it's important to get an idea, and Microsoft Learn, as Gregor and I both said, is a really good way to look at those, paths, look at what services are part of that path to determine what direction you want to go and how you want to determine where you want to go from a career, professional development, as well as a personal fulfillment standpoint. I can say I get a real adrenaline rush when I get back that pass feedback when I hit the send. Usually, and a lot of times I'm taking my exams really early in the morning, and it's like a boost of caffeine usually to me when I get that pass. It really feels it feels good from a personal as well as a professional standpoint that you've accomplished something. And I think one of the things I know Gregor feels the same way. It's we have it's this always be learning kind of approach to things, and always feeling that there's always something that you can learn, and being just a career student. And I've kind of talked about that on some of my blog posts that it's just just this thirst for continually learning, but it's also helpful because we are in an industry, and if you're in the cloud industry, it's constantly changing and constantly evolving. And if you're not going to put the effort forth to continue to learn what's new, and as Gregor pointed out, things that keep getting updated within Microsoft Learn and within the Azure environment, if you aren't staying up on that, you're going to fall behind. So it's important to to have that plan, have your own development path, utilize the resources that Gregor and I showed you. Something like Gregor said, what we'll try and do is put the links in the comments section of the YouTube channel when this is posted, so that it's all there for everybody and everybody can get there. But first and foremost, Microsoft Learn is always the best first place to go, because again, it's free, which is great, because the only investment it is on your time, and you can get an idea then for where you want to go, what's of interest to you, because there's so many services out there. And like Gregor said about AI is that is probably one of the most fun paths just to even take the exam on. Yeah. It's just so cool to learn some of that stuff, and how a lot of that you can really relate to all of the the smart devices now that are in your home, and how they work from a back end standpoint. It's just fun, and I recommend going down some of those paths just to learn new things, and just to invigorate yourself in the around the cloud ecosystem.
Yeah, I think if I was starting my career now with the knowledge that I've got, I would probably look at AI and AI data scientists and all that kind of stuff, because it's just really cool. There's a lot of really clever technologies out there. That's kind of why I looked at the AI fundamentals exam. I wanted to just see, and kind of do a wee quick refresher in case I was missing anything. But yeah, it's very, very cool stuff. And there's so many Azure services to do with AI nowadays. It's hard to keep up with things like that. So I might continue down that path.
Yeah, and a lot of those services, tie into it. And even just if from a security engineer standpoint, if you're getting involved in Azure Sentinel as a SIM solution, understanding that what's going on in the background with some of the machine learning and AI services that are just tied into that. They're putting more and more of that's tying into everything else in one way or another. So understanding some of that is definitely helpful.
Yeah, there is quite a lot of crossover in the exams as well. As you said earlier on, when you're doing like the administration exams, and then you're doing the developer exams, they kind of lead into the same sort of, some of the content's repeated in the like Azure architect exams and things like that. So it's not always every time you move to a new exam, it's fully 100% you need to learn everything.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of crossover as well, which is nice.
Yeah, which is what Microsoft, I think, because that way Microsoft broke it all down in those role-based certifications for the fact that then somebody can get kind of some of that background with the overlap in one exam that's not necessarily due to their role, and that continues on. So there is overlap probably with every one of the exams, especially with, like you said, with the architect and the administrator. There's a lot of overlap there. Even when you get into like the AI and the data scientist and the data, those all kind of tie together pretty tightly as well. So those are definitely things to think about as you're going through and choosing as well. So let's wrap things up here. So I want to thank everybody for attending today. This expert talk, this certification talk with Skill Me Up, and my name's Dwayne Natwick. Gregor, if you want to say your goodbyes.
My name's Gregor. So thanks for joining us. I hope you find something useful, and hopefully you start your exam challenge now. So good luck on your journey.
Yes, and just a closing note, you can find all the episodes for the certification talks, Cloud Maker talks, Thinking Cloudy talks, available on Skill Me Up as well as the Skill Me Up YouTube channel. Generally, we have these out on the Skill Me Up site for a couple weeks for subscribers before they go to the YouTube channel, but then they're public on the YouTube channel, and you can very easily find those. Subscribe to the Skill Me Up YouTube channel, and you'll get notifications when new videos do come up available. And you can find the complete schedule of upcoming live expert talks on skillmeup.com. And Gregor and I have a few more that have just recently been scheduled for different updates on specific exams. We'll talk about some of the changes and updates to exams that you might be preparing for as well that we have coming up in the coming weeks. So look for those. And thank you very much.
Thank you.